What's going on, everybody? Welcome. We're going to be talking about players to fade, especially for those drafting late. You're with your host, Justin Henry, for Bob Palmer, right here on Bleacher Report. Shout out to the chat for getting here and rocking with us throughout the show. But today, we're going to be talking about those players that you don't want to draft on your fantasy team. And P, this is always a touchy subject because we're going to be talking about somebody's favorite player here. Somebody's going to get in their emotions, especially when it comes to people who already drafted. But this is for those, hey, we going to warn you before you get those last minute drafts in, don't take these players.
That's a fact, man. And when we're talking about avoiding these players, it's not 100% like avoiding them completely. If they fall around to you a round or two rounds, by all means, go ahead and take them. But keep your emotions out of it, especially when you're drafting, because you know, it's gonna get spicy here.
It's going to get spicy. And, P just mentioned it. This isn't players that you don't want to absolutely never take. They're not terrible players, and we're not saying they're not going to perform at all. They're just going a little higher than you want, man. And so sometimes there's value at the same range that you're taking another player, and you have to absolutely know that heading into your draft. So it's our job to get you guys ready, and you guys can give us feedback on these picks and if we're going the right way or not. So, P, I want you to start off, man. Give us one of your players that's on your do not draft list.
Yeah, so on my do not draft list, this is somebody who I was talking about a lot last year, and for good reason. Devon Achane. So this is a player who is going at his current ADP is going in the kind of in the beginning of the second round. Look, this Dolphins team has made it a point to like kind of like limit his carries, not necessarily limit his carries, but bring in a goal back, right? They want to run a two-back system. He himself he's on the smaller side, and they made it clear with you see what they're doing with Ollie Gordon, right? Bringing in a big back and a goal line back, somebody who can run up the middle, similar to how they were doing with Mostert 2 years ago, right? He came in with 20 touchdowns, leading the league in the touchdowns, but Achan offers high upside, but also offers an extremely low floor. He has been injury prone in the past, and he's already nursing what looks like and what appears to be a more serious injury than what they're letting off to be. Right? Hasn't played a single game in the preseason, and this type of injury has a high risk of re-injury. So even if he's out there, I see them really focusing in on Ollie Gordon a lot more. Making it maybe like a 60-40 split with Ollie Gordon getting a lot of the goal line carries and whatnot, what have you. But along with that, the Dolphins themselves, they seem to have stability issues, right? We're already seeing Tyreek being hurt. We know the history with Tua Tagovailoa. He doesn't want to wear the Guardian cap. And we've seen how that had impacted them last year when Tua was out. That was a completely different offensive team. So we've seen him struggle with it. And in situations where you're on that swing pick at the back end of the first round, coming in the second round, you want to target high upside players. But if the floor is this low, somebody I would definitely avoid, and you just can't ignore the signs with this one.
I'm completely on the opposite side of that. And I think Devon Achane does carry a really nice floor, especially when you talk about PPR leagues for the pass catching. And I know like Ollie Gordon is there now for as the running back that's going to be using the red zone, so to speak. But we even have to see that because there was talks about that with Raheem Mostert last year. We got to the goal line and they were still using Devon Achane in that role. So for me, I think Achane does carry a lot of ceiling, potentially as like the RB1 if things go right. And your one concern with him is really just injury. That's it. And I mean, that's a big concern for most players. And most players can have, the same type of injury risk. And you go into the second round now, like he's already starting to fall a little bit in drafts, going to the middle to back end of the second round. For me, I'm like, that's where you can get really good upside because you probably already took somebody that was way safer at the top. So I do disagree with you here, man. I think that Devon Achane has a lot more upside than you're letting on, especially if he does get more volume in the passing game. We're talking about a guy that could be like 80 to 100 catches, which would probably lead the league. That's really high floor in my
If he
opinion if he
stays
stays
healthy,
healthy.
biggest if in the world. We're talking about the type of injury he has. When you're talking about his calf injury for a running back, that's a huge deal. I can see if somebody had like random soft tissue injuries, like kind of he has in the past. If we're talking about like an ACL or we're talking about like hamstrings, I get that, right? And I acknowledge his ceiling. His ceiling is there. But we're talking about calf injuries for a running back. Nah, I'll let somebody else waste that on. I'll let somebody else waste a draft pick on him.
Devon Achane expected to be out there for week one. Obviously, does carry the calf injury. He's supposed to be all clear to go back at practice now this week. So we'll see how it goes with Devon Achane. When it comes to me and one of my do not drafts, it's probably going to piss a lot of people off, but Ashton Jeanty. I still don't know why he's got this top five-ish RB level, ADP. And I could see maybe in standard leagues, if you're thinking, Pete Carroll and Chip Kelly are just going to force feed him the rock. I just don't see it happening that way on this, kind of mediocre offense when you talk about the Las Vegas Raiders. This is going to be a brand new regime, and I'm sure they're going to force feed him and give him touches. But what's that look like? 250 carries, 275 carries. This isn't a 300 touch back, especially when you bring in a guy who's kind of in a proven situation. I know people don't like older backs, but Raheem Mostert is a viable veteran who's had success in the past. Now, I think the passing game work is really the one key. If Ashton Jeanty looks like he did a couple years ago as opposed to last year, maybe we have a little bit more when it comes to the passing game. But when you talk about Pete Carroll, you talk about Chip Kelly, both of these coaches are notorious for like not passing a lot to their running backs. So I think expecting something different here where he's going as the RB6, and you got some really good names that go after him in drafts. We just talked about Devon Achane. I'd much rather have Devon Achane than an Ashton Jeanty. I'd much rather have a Jonathan Taylor than an Ashton Jeanty. So I think Ashton Jeanty is going purely off of his name and production in college. This is the NFL level. And we also got to expect that this Raider offense isn't going to look like some of the other offenses that are here at the top.
You know, Jay, as much as I would like to disagree with you for the banter, it's hard for me to do that because people right now are drafting Ashton Jeanty at what would be his complete ceiling. And, the Chip Kelly system's great, right? It's a high up-tempo system and it's good for running backs. But it's just some of those players that I would take before him that are actually going currently after him. So, yeah, I can't disagree with you on that one.
Yeah, and even, Chip Kelly's talked about how he's dialed things back as of late.
Hmm.
He had to learn like that old system doesn't work as well. But even still, if you really think about what we do in fantasy when you draft players, you're kind of assessing what is their season-long value. So my prompt to anybody who disagrees is what do you think Ashton Genty's numbers are going to be? Because if they're not like 1,300, 1,400 yards with like 40 catches, 50 catches, and 10 plus touchdowns, we got a running back that's going after him in Derrick Henry that had 1,900 yards and 16 touchdowns last year. James Cook is going rounds after him and had 16 touchdowns last year. Jonathan Taylor is a threat for 1,800 yards, and he goes after Ashton Jeanty. So my prompt to anybody who takes Ashton Jeanty is, what do you think the numbers are going to be? What do you think the numbers are going to be? So let's get to some of the chat, man, because obviously I know you guys are going to disagree on some things that we have to say. Maybe you agree. P, one of the first ones that came in was Devontae Smith is definitely on the do not draft list. You agree with that?
I think for where he's going, it's not bad. He's going wide receiver 12 on sleeper. It's not a bad one. I'd prefer somebody with a little bit more upside than he has, but I'm okay with him being on that, not being on the do not draft list.
Yeah, I like Devontae Smith for where he's going, like high end wide receiver three, back end wide receiver two.
Yeah.
Obviously, being the wide receiver two in the offense isn't always great, especially, some people think the Eagles offense can be a little bit limiting at times.
Mm,
The next one that came in, though, my whole league didn't want Achane. He ended up falling to the fifth round. And
damn.
this P is the definition of like taking do not draft way too serious because Achane should not be falling into the fifth round. I like Achane, obviously, but obviously he's on your do not draft list.
Yeah.
Fifth round?
Fifth round, no, fifth round is a W. Fifth round is a win. At that point, his upside is just too high at that point. So you're not really, yeah, there is no risk baked in with that,
For
right?
clarity, for
Yeah,
clarity purposes, like obviously you said do not draft him in the second round where he's going right there.
yeah. So
Where
look,
would you feel comfortable with Devon Achane and like what running back range do you have him?
so with Devon Achane, it looks like right now his ADP is kind of falling, but you're gonna have to get him at like the top of the second round.
Mhm.
If he were to even fall to me in the third round, I would be happy with that. right? So if I can get somebody, if I go running back in the first round, like if I go, for just purposes, CMC in the first round, and then come back and get Brian Thomas, and then if he comes back around in the third round, for me at the back of that third round, I don't mind taking him right there, right? It's just
That's
that
some 10-team leagues for you.
yeah, I mean, he's dropping to the fifth round, and I don't know how many players are in that league, but no,
Four-man
fifth
league. What
round is
is
just
that?
way too crazy, right? It's take him for that, and you'd strike gold there.
So yeah, and I know there's concerns about the cap, and obviously with like Christian McCaffrey, that's probably the big thing. We just saw it happen last year with the same injury, so I get it could be a little concerning. What about Quinshon Judkins? We got news that he might get signed this year. Came in that said, "Gotta be a guy not to draft." And you know what? When I think about Quinshon Judkins and what he can be for this Browns offense, it's Jerome Ford and Dylan Sampson. It's not like he has a lot to like progress past. So I think Quinshon Judkins, who obviously had a strong career, they drafted him in the second round, kind of profiles as a guy they can lean on heavily throughout the year. I actually don't mind getting him where he's going right now, which is like RB4 range, which is for the most part backups anyway.
No, I'm right there with you, dude. I mean, this guy's a blue chipper coming out. That offense is going to be really, focusing on the run, and if he's coming out with fresh legs, I would feel comfortable drafting him in that range, and give him a few weeks to kind of get his legs under him, and I think he could be a problem for you.
Well, we had a couple running backs coming off the do not draft list early. P. Anybody who's next on your do not draft list?
Yeah, I got some spicy ones here, boy. So my do not draft, I talked about him a little bit. AJ Brown, right now going as wide receiver 10. I know you can disagree, you're gonna make some faces, but go ahead. Right now, going in the second round, look, I'm gonna just keep it real with you. AJ Brown is like a 1,200 yard receiver disguised as or excuse me, a 1,400 yard receiver disguised as a 12, or vice versa. 1,200 yard receiver disguised as a 1,400 yard wide receiver, right?
Can't even
In
say it
this
right.
offense, a lot of people think he has that 14, 1,500 yard upside, and I'm trying to tell you he does not. In this offense, yeah, make want. In this offense, bro, this is a run heavy offense. This is, in fact, one of the most, if not the most run heavy offense in the National Football League, probably next to like the Baltimore Ravens, right? A few points I want to point out here. I understand he got last year. He missed 4 games, right? Still like cracked 1,000 yards and 7 touchdowns. He's not in this offense with Saquon Barkley. He's not a huge PPR guy. He only averaged 5 catches a game and he only got 7 targets a game, right? That is the system that they run. They're run heavy. And they play defense, and their defense has gotten extremely better this year. So why do you think the game script is going to benefit him more? Why do you think he's going to break out for 1,400 yards? I don't believe that. I think his ceiling is extremely capped in this system for those reasons that I mentioned. Another point I want to mention, it's not like he's this huge touchdown merchant, right? He's only had double-digit touchdowns twice in his career. So what do you like? Where are you thinking in this offense where they're extremely run heavy with Saquon Barkley that he's going to have 1,400 yards and 10 touchdowns and really approach that ceiling? He's only averaged last year with Saquon Barkley 14.1 fantasy points per game, right? 14.1 fantasy points per game. And the way when I'm talking about his ceiling being capped, last year in half point PPR, I just want to clarify, half point PPR, he only eclipsed 20 points 3 times last season. So for me, he's a complete avoid. I would rather have all of the other wide receivers around him, probably outside of Lad. I'd much rather have Drake London. I'd much rather even go with some of the running backs that are going around that range. So yeah, I mean, if you're drafting him, go ahead, bro. That's not me. It's a
Well,
mistake.
5 point in full point PPR, he had 5 games over 20 fantasy points. So we got to get that right. And that's in just 13 games. And AJ Brown has been a staple of the top 5, top 6 receivers since he's been in Philly. We're talking about a guy who had 1,400 yards both of his first years in Philly, missed 4 games last year. It was on that same pace last year with 1,100 yards. He has 7 touchdowns. So we give him 3 more games. You don't think he's hitting 1,410? For me, I
Mm-mm.
think AJ Brown is one of my favorite players to draft in the second round because he's safe. And not only that, if everybody saw what Saquon Barkley did last year for this Eagles team as they went to the Super Bowl, there's concerns about him being on the Madden cover. There's concerns about his workload. Maybe there's concerns about him having that kind of workload all the way till January. You don't think the Eagles are taking note and saying, "Hey, maybe we can win through the passing game.
No, I
Maybe
don't.
we can get there through the passing game."
No,
You
I
ever heard
don't.
AJ Brown say he wants to come out and show why he's the best receiver in the league? I think AJ Brown
Everybody,
is in
every wide
for
receiver
a
is going to say that.
crazy year. A
No,
crazy year. I think he's 1,400, 1,500 yards just like normal, 10
no
plus
way,
touchdowns. And
no
we're talking
way,
about we're talking about 80 plus catches.
no
I think it's
way.
easy.
Look,
I think it's an easy
no,
smash.
it's
Easy.
easy pass, bro. Easy pass. And I understand you're talking about the only reason, the only way that he would even get close to that is if you do believe in curse and it's real, and if you do believe in superstition, and Saquon Barkley gets hurt. That's the only reason I say
He was close to that last year with
he
Saquon
had a
Barkley.
thousand yards last year, bro, and he had five
He had
catches
almost
a game.
1,100 yards in
He had
13
five catches a
games.
game, bro. He had seven targets a game. You're not going to get 1,500 yards on five catches a game. You're just not.
I'm telling you the numbers. He had those numbers. It's not the average of what he had. Those are actual numbers. He had almost 1,100 yards last year in
He had
13
he had a
games.
thousand yards
That's
left.
a
He didn't have a
1,400
little.
yard pace.
Yeah, I mean, he only broke double digit touchdowns twice in his career. So I mean, if we're hoping and we look him, the player, his talent is great. His situation is not. His situation, like he had however many 20-point games in full PPR, he had five, right?
Yeah.
If you're drafting your wide receiver one on your fantasy team, you want to expect blow up games from them. You do. You want to expect blow up games. He averaged 14 fantasy points a season last year, or 14 fantasy points a game last year. That's not what you want for your wide receiver one on your team. Let's you can have all the shares of AJ Brown in any league you share with me, Jay.
Hey, don't worry, I'll take him. And we can go to another receiver because I know me and you can spend all day on AJ
All
Brown going
day.
back and forth on his talent. But another receiver that we got to talk about that I think is on my do not draft list is going right around the same range as AJ Brown. And I'd much rather have AJ Brown than Lad McConkey. Lad McConkey, who finished as the wide receiver 13 last year in PPR leagues. I know this is it's a fan favorite. A lot of people like Lad McConkey because you found him late in drafts last year. He performed well, outperformed expectations to the tune of 1,100 yards, seven touchdowns. So obviously, it feels like second year he's going to get better. And I think that's the problem is that he's in this Charger offense that is going to be run heavy like it was last year. The Chargers were in the bottom third when it comes to pass attempts per game. And when I think about what Lad McConkey can provide, it's like he doesn't really provide 100 catch ceiling. He don't really have 10 touchdown ceiling. So what you're hoping is for like a major yardage leap. But the team went and got Trey Harris this offseason. Quentin Johnson is still there. I know a lot of people don't like him, but he was heavily involved in the offense last year. You go and you sign Keenan Allen now, and not to mention you go bring in 1,000 yard back in Najee, and you draft a first round back in Amarian Hampton. This is setting up for a lot more pieces than just Lad McConkey, especially when he had a lot of his production towards the end of last season. So I get people are infatuated with the name Lad McConkey. He performed well for last season, but that's looking at past year stats, expecting this year to be the same production. I don't see it there. There's not really a whole lot of upside for Lad McConkey in this offense. I would stay away from Lad McConkey in the second round. Even in the third, there's other receivers. I take T. Higgins, Tyreek Hill, some other names I'd rather have instead of Lad McConkey. He's more of a back end third, high end fourth round pick to me. I know he'll never fall to me there, but that's where I would take him if I were to draft Lad McConkey at any point in time. He's on my do not draft list.
Yeah, I mean, you and I are in alignment with that. All the other pieces that they're adding, I think Lad McConkey last year was a product of just no other competition, really, right? He was a spark. He was a good story as a rookie. I don't see him repeating that, especially with Keenan Allen coming and joining the party.
Yeah, and you see the predictions there: 90 catches, 1,200 yards, and seven touchdowns. Like to me, that's just not inspiring. That's not inspiring at all. Like you're not tapping 100 catches, you're not tapping 1,400 yards, you're not tapping 10 touchdowns. And like Mike Evans, we know he's probably going to be over 10 touchdowns, probably somewhere between 1,000 and 1,200 yards. Give me Mike Evans over Lad McConkey,
All
even
right,
just with the
100%.
expectations there. So. Let us know your guys' thoughts on Lad McConkey and AJ Brown. Let's head to the chat real quick. What about Brees Hall, P? A lot of people talking about Brees Hall and like, he might get traded and this offense is different and he's in a contract. You're like, there's a lot of speculation with Brees Hall, but he's fallen to us in like the third, fourth, and even fifth round in
Yeah.
drafts.
I think in the fifth round, I'm good with him. Look, Brees Hall is a huge talent, and I like the offense that they're putting around him. But they're not just talking about running him and two running backs. They're talking about mixing three running backs in the system, right? Although Brees Hall is a talent, they're also talking about like, it's not him. It's not that regime that drafted him. So it's always kind of an uphill battle. He has a lot to prove, but if he's fallen, I don't mind taking him.
I like getting Brees Hall, man, especially at the value. We saw him just be the running back two years ago. 2023, he was the running back two, and he's going to be more involved in the passing game. So even if Braylon Allen does come over and take some of the red zone work, even if Isaiah Davis comes in and gets a little bit more action, I still think this is Brees Hall's job to lose, and I feel like he'll perform well. We've seen him, man. So what about Eagle fan here? We got Eagle fan from Sean Corey. He says, Eagle fan here, go get Smitty. AJ's dealing with the hamstring that could linger. So when it comes to the hamstring injury, obviously, I think AJ Brown, he's a veteran. He doesn't have to be in these situations. He can afford to miss some time in the preseason. And I do agree, like, yes, it's hamstring is tough, but at the same time, that's an injury that has been managed properly. He is going to go through the preseason, start the season. He's good to go now. So I think for sure AJ Brown is going to be fine. And now, will it come up at some point? Yeah, but then you also have players like Ted McMillan, etc., that could be going through something similar. Another question that came in the chat was, would you trade away Kenneth Walker for RJ Harvey and Joe Burrow? Your current quarterback is Dak. For me, and this is for somebody with quarterback concerns. I don't necessarily share any quarterback concerns when it comes to Dak. I think Dak is sustainable, and if your concern's injury, that might be the biggest worry. For me, I'm good with Dak as my starter, and I don't really think RJ Harvey and Joe Burrow is enough for me to move Kenneth Walker. I would rather have Kenneth Walker as my RB2 and just stick with Dak. So I'm not sure. Even if your league was a deeper league and you wanted to, I don't think you really need two quarterbacks, just so to speak. And then the last question that came in, a two flex question. Got Josh Allen. Should I start Shakir and Coleman or Jacoby Myers or Ollie Gordon? So the week one questions are coming in here. Um, Obviously, this is one of those things where, you know, you have to decide and it's matchup specific. I think Coleman's a good bet this week. And I think with Jacoby Myers, we have to see what his role looks like, especially if he is holding out. So Ollie Gordon might be the play there. So we're going to take a quick pause. We'll be right back. We're having a little bit of technical issues. We'll be right back. We are back talking last minute fantasy do not draft list. And we got to continue the list, P, with even more players that we got to fade. And this one seems like it might be an older one, P.
Yeah, we're talking about a little long in the tooth. I'm talking about Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones here, right? So, he's going as RB 26, somebody I'm completely avoiding. You may think that a running back falling into the middle of the or middle of the sixth round is, is, you know, he's an older back, long story short, right? He's turning 31 in December. So, what we know of Aaron Jones, solid player, fits in the system actually really well. But he has an injury always had an injury history, despite last year actually playing a full healthy season. You could kind of count on that with him being 31, playing until he's 31, right? So, the main reason here why he's a player that I'm avoiding is because Minnesota's traded actually for Jordan Mason, and they traded for him, signed him to a 2-year deal. So. I see this more as a passing of the guard, right? So it's going to be a 50-50 split. That's what they're saying. Whereas I see it more of like over the course of the season, Jordan Mason really taking on that role of maybe even a 60-40 split, depending on how their performance is going to be based. So Jordan Mason, I see him seizing a lot of the goal line work. And in this same system, when he was on the Niners, he averaged 107 yards of rushing a game. So he's no slouch. He's going in a system that fits. They believe in him. That's why they traded a few draft picks for him and signed him to a 2-year deal. So, why would I draft Aaron Jones in the middle of sixth when in round eight or nine I can get Jordan Mason? He's just a complete Aaron Jones is just complete avoid for me.
Yeah, and he goes in a range where there's like some really good receivers too. I just don't find myself drafting a lot of Aaron Jones, even if I missed out on the running back position. But I do think Aaron Jones probably is being punished a little too much just because he's age 30 and the team traded for another running back. If I'm being honest, Jordan Mason's been a backup and he is a backup. Like he's not really a starting caliber player. And I think that's why you hear the 1A, 1B. Aaron Jones has proven, even in a timeshare, he could be really valuable when it comes to fantasy. He's had top 15 finishes when AJ Dillon was there, supposedly going to take over the workload in the similar type of role. So I think the one concern I have with Aaron Jones is, can he stay healthy? Can he make it through the season? He's had injury bug throughout his entire career, even though he played 17 games last year with Minnesota. It's like he always seems to be banged up, and he had a top 15 finish last year, but I'd still err on the side of caution. I actually don't think he's going at a bad spot. You just talked about it. There's a lot more upside with Jordan Mason. So on my end, I have one more do not draft player as well, Sam LaPorta. And Sam LaPorta, to me, this is one I just don't understand. Why is Sam LaPorta going as a top four tight end? Literally, he's at the top of the next tier, and he finishes the tight end 8 last year. I think we go back to like, oh, we finished number 1 2 years ago, but that was really before the emergence of Jahmyr Gibbs. And then David Montgomery's back. We've seen Jamison Williams take on a much larger role. He's like the fourth option in the passing game and like fifth option, even, in just the offense in general. So I think he's going right now ahead of like some really dynamic names to me. Kelsey, you talk about Hawkinson, Evan Ingram, David Njoku, Tyler Warren. Like there's a lot of other tight ends I would take at their ADP as opposed to like Sam LaPorta, who you have to grab in the fourth or fifth round at times right after George Kittle. So I think for now, I am out on the Sam LaPorta train. I mean, if he had 707 again, where he had last year, would that shock anybody? I don't think so. And I think that's a decent year for Sam LaPorta. So I'm not expecting double digit touchdowns. I'm not expecting him to crack 1,000 yards. And I think if you're going to take a tight end in the top 4 or 5 rounds, they better be somewhere around there. Sam LaPorta clearly, to me, will not be there.
Yeah, yeah, no, I'm with you. The biggest thing is Ben Johnson is no longer there. Sam Laporta was Ben Johnson's guy. It's tough. But when we see defensive-minded coaches, defensive-minded head coaches, we're going to see who their offensive coordinator is going to be. They do tend to rely on the tight end, so that's some shining glory on him, but like you mentioned, TJ Hawkinson I'd rather have. It's either of those rookie tight ends, Colston Loveland, Warren. I'd much rather have them at their cost than a Sam Laporta.
Yeah, I think it's do you expect him to take on a bigger role? I'm not really seeing it. I just don't really see like the room for like in the fourth, fifth round, you can grab like really good receivers still. You can take Jamison Williams in that round. In the
Yeah.
fifth and sixth round, like you're grabbing top receiver. Even in the sixth, seventh round, like there's a lot more there. So somebody said I took Hawkinson over LaPorta, and I'm like, bro, I
Mm,
have Hawkinson rated higher than LaPorta. I have Kelsey higher than LaPorta. I have Evan Ingram higher than LaPorta. Like he's like tight end 9, 10 for
yeah.
me.
And just to talk about Hawkinson a little bit, I think he's very, very underrated.
Facts.
Hawkinson, for the injury, he was one of the top premier tight ends. Everybody wanted a little bit of Hawkinson. Last year, he's coming back from that injury, working, still getting his feet under him. You seen in the playoffs, he was the number two target for that team, and he was shining in the playoffs, and that's an indicator that the following season you can expect some good things from Hawkinson. So that's just my little tidbit.
Nah, 100%. And, we've seen him in this Kevin O'Connell offense before. Kevin O'Connell will give him like 10, 15 targets in a game without blinking, bro. And without Jordan Addison for the first
Hmm.
3 games, excuse me, we already know what we can expect out of Hawkinson. So let us know your guys' thoughts overall on the entire list of our last minute do not draft list for fantasy purposes. Number 1, we had Devon Achane. Number 2, we had Ashton Jeanty. Number 3, we had AJ Brown. Number 4, we had Lad McConkey. Number 5, we had Aaron Jones. And number 6, we had Sam LaPorta. So good luck to those who are still drafting. We obviously have football coming up here on Thursday. It's a very beautiful thing. We got, what was it? Eagles and Cowboys Thursday night. It's
Mm.
gonna be fun, Pig.
Yeah, I love it, man. I can't, take this advice, where you guys are cramming in some drafts right now. I know I actually have a draft here in a few hours. But I have way too many drafts actually when I think about it. But listen, take just to recap, kind of like what we're talking about. If Devon Achane's going to fall a round or 2 rounds, take him there, right? If AJ
Value.
Brown goes to the fourth round, I'd consider some other people. No, I'm just joking. If AJ Brown goes to the fourth round, take him. It's not blacklisting these players at their ADP. You just want to be cognizant of the points that we're bringing up.
Yes, fade does not mean do not draft, and do not draft does not mean completely don't draft, just not in the rounds we told you about. So we will see you on the next one. For myself, for Bob Parmar, Justin Henry, we will see you guys on the next one. Peace out.